Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings Talk, presented by Cap to the Crown. This is Tony. With me, as always, we've got John. One more day until the season begins. The long wait is finally almost over. The Kings wrapped up the preseason on Thursday, going just 1-4. But hey, no reason to worry yet, right? Unless you're one of those people who worry about preseason. It's like, no, it's time to blow it up. But
no, that'd be hella funny if someone was just like they thought the preseason was the regular season. They're just saying that, or they're going like, it's funny that the Warriors made a return to the Golden One Center and Draymond didn't play.
Yeah,
what it was, he was scared.
If you go out there on whatever social media or wherever Kings fans converse, you definitely see overreactions out there for preseason. And I think we're going to discuss today some stuff that are maybe overreactions or maybe stuff that it's good to keep your eye on. But hey, you never know when the season starts what can change. But it is funny seeing people overreact. It's like, great, we're 0-3. We haven't even won a game. It's like, all right. Who cares?
Yeah. Like that was what heartbreaker with Steph Curry hitting that game winner.
Oh,
made me
my
cry.
God, I know. Those two Warriors games, the first one just never ended.
Yeah.
The second one you watched the whole,
right?
yeah, that was the first one. It's like, oh my goodness. I like watching Kings preseason basketball or just Kings basketball in general. Preseason, maybe not as much. And I was like, all right, let me watch it. Like, just end. This game has no meaning. Like, I'm tired. It's a Sunday. It's like, I'm trying to go to bed.
I feel like that second Warriors game was like, it was, I think the duration of it was typical basketball, like 2.5 hours, but it felt like it just got dragged. There was like so many timeouts and challenges and stuff.
The last 20 seconds was ridiculous.
20 seconds turned into like 25 minutes. It was like, come on. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's always the worst.
Spare our energy.
Man. Yeah,
we're just complaining now. We're complaining about the privilege of watching basketball.
I can't wait till these 82 games are over with.
I can't wait till the next off season when we get time on this podcast.
I know the season hasn't even begun. We're already complaining. But yeah, tomorrow it's crazy. I can't believe it's already back. Faced off against the Utah Jazz. The team we beat, the only preseason game. So, maybe that's good foreshadowing for the Kings. But
until Taylor Horton Tucker drops 50 or something.
HT, baby.
Yeah.
Taylor Horton and Laurie Mark. Is it Markkanen or is it Markkanen? I've heard it pronounced both ways.
I've heard it both ways, but I think it's Markkanen. And it's like, is it Lowry? Lowry Markkanen?
Yeah. I don't think it's
Laurie.
Yeah, it's just easier. Markkanen's easier to say, too, instead of Markkanen. Markkanen? Or Markkanen? Like a cannon? Like, dude, he's got a cannon for a arm.
He's launching the cannon from the 3-point line.
Yeah, it just sounds cooler. Because it's a cannon and it's a gun, as a guy. So, yeah, it's a cannon.
Yeah.
Cannon's just a cool word.
Jazz are interesting, though, with John Collins there. Maybe he has a resurgence.
John, yeah, I forgot John Collins went there.
Yeah.
Maybe. Remember when he was, tied to the Kings?
Yeah, it seemed like it for a year and a half.
Yeah, forever. I'm glad we didn't get him.
Yeah.
There's a reason he was being shopped.
Big time. Big mistake to give him. But they gave him a pretty sizable contract.
Oh, yeah. I think it was $90 million worth or something. It was pretty. He was good. I just one of those guys, one of those head cases, unfortunately. Just, I don't know. Just doesn't care enough or something. Because he was averaging 20 and 10 at one point in his career, or pretty close to it, on 38% from three.
He was just lousy last season.
Oh, he was terrible. And that's why in McNair we trust, He went after someone in Atlanta, but he grabbed someone else. And it's just a good way to start off this conversation, this podcast. Unless we spent 20 minutes just talking about ourselves and nothing about the Kings. So,
well, we actually had stuff to talk about with the season happening. We don't have to throw the banter out there. In fact, when I put the YouTube version out, I put a timestamp. I'm like, don't like the banter? Skip to your actual Kings talk.
That's actually very smart of you. Good job.
Yeah. I don't think people click more on the description, though. They don't see the links to the shop or anything like that. So check that out, and hit that subscribe button because, damn it, it really boosts our morale.
Yes, it really does. Anytime I see a new subscriber or comment, I'm just like, you just get that little rush. Let's go!
That's right. Hell yeah.
But back to the Kings. I was doing this smooth transition to Kevin Huerter, and then I just ruined it. Kevin Huerter, the Big Hurt, Kayvon, Red Velvet, the names. Does he have another one? Red? No.
The Big Hurt, Red Velvet. Who's Roger Rabbit's wife?
Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit. That's what I'll call him.
Because he's a redhead.
He's a redhead. Smoking out a redhead.
Kevin Huerter. He has not looked good in preseason. This is like, we overreacting, or is it, cause for concern? Because he ended last year very poorly, as we all know. His postseason was horrendous. I mean, you argue one of the reasons we lost that series to the Warriors was, Kevin Huerter shooting 20% from three and probably not much better from the field. And he doesn't seem to really have improved. I mean, it's only preseason so far, but shooting in the 20% in 3-point shooting this preseason, I think barely over 30% on just field goals in general. His defense looks, he did a little better against the Warriors that one game, but man, he just doesn't look good, really. I mean, is that cause for concern? How much should we be panicking right now over Kevin Huerter, and how much should he be like worried about his starting job?
Well, I would say in terms of panicking, I think the Kings' depth this season makes it that you don't have to panic too much because it's not like there's a hole that can't be filled. It's not like a Rashawn Holmes situation where it's just like, oh, shoot, well, who else at this point? Even though, that's not really a great comparison because Alex Len was there the whole time. But yeah, the Duarte acquisition and Colby Jones is surprising, if you want to call it, just comfort in the league, it seems. That makes it less of a cause for concern, I think. But, I mean, fourth highest paid player on the team, the big acquisition looked like a steal from Atlanta. It doesn't really carry that same magic to it because, like you said, not only is he struggling defensively, and I mean, his intent is there defensively, like that Warriors game you referenced. I think that was the first Warriors game or the second one. He looked like, off the bat, he had a few moments, but then quickly subsided back into what he typically does. And he's not complementing that with any offense at all. And that's kind of rough. I think, Mike Brown said after Thursday's game against the Jazz that when you're bringing a different level of intensity and physicality to the defensive end, and you're doing that more often, it changes your rhythm and it changes the shots that you usually make. They make it a little harder. So maybe it's an adjustment period, but I don't know. I mean, it hasn't looked super convincing on offense, and he's played a lot less with Domas. I mean, when he came off the bench in that game where Duarte started, and, in this past game without Domas playing, you've seen him a lot without Domas. And it's just like he tries to get into the middle and get a little floater or a little mid-range up. And he's missing those. And it just doesn't seem like he has a rhythm at all right now. And, I mean, he's going to have his chance to start. He's going to start, the first 5-10 games, I would imagine, before a decision has to get made. But, I mean, he kind of has to whip it into shape quickly because, like I said, there are guys in the wings that could easily fill in for him. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that he's in danger of losing a spot in the rotation, but if there's no improvement, there are guys that play both ends of the floor better than him. And especially if he's not shooting, if he never finds that rhythm offensively, that's a huge issue. I guess, again, maybe don't panic, but I think he's definitely in danger of losing a starting spot. And I would venture so far as to say that I wouldn't be surprised if he falls out of the rotation here and there. It's going to be rough for him if he can't balance things out.
Yeah, it's crazy how much difference a year makes. I mean, maybe not a year ago, maybe 11 months ago. Remember how hot he started off the season?
Yeah.
He was shooting like 50%. averaging, I don't know, probably like 17, 18 points a game, just absolutely on fire. And everyone's like, wow, like Atlanta messed up getting rid of this guy, this and that. And man, I mean, I know Kevin has it in him to be that player again. It just, I don't know. He's going to have to turn it around quick because, I mean, you can't just, I think he'll have the job to start off the season for sure. But I mean, there's only so much of a leash that, like, how long that leash is going to be, right? Until, Duarte is performing well. And like you said, Colby Jones has looked really good. There's a lot of people around him that can fill in. And if he can't step up, I mean, like you said, I think I could see him losing that starting job and maybe even get out of the rotation for a minute until he can do it. I mean, I think Kevin Huerter will end the season as the starting shooting guard, but I don't know. I think he will lose it at some point early on.
Yeah.
Just because that defense and the lack of offense, the Kings don't have time to wait around, and they have
Right.
two guys ready to take that starting job. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things too where we talked about it a little bit last week where it's like, okay, well, if Herter doesn't start, things get even more troublesome for him because him coming off the bench, I feel like as opposed to Duarte coming off the bench, you're weakening, a defensive weapon off the bench because he's never, I don't think he's ever going to be like a scary defender or really good. I mean, he can be solid. He needs to find that baseline of defense with it where he's not getting blown by and where he's playing physically while not sacrificing his offense. But like you put him off the bench, he's the backup three. You probably have to have him guard wings more. That doesn't make things easier. That makes that like amplifies his issues. He's not the strongest guy on top of not having the greatest athleticism. I mean, he needs to I think for him to preserve his status, he needs to preserve his starting spot because that's where he's going to be able to perform best. He's going to play with Domas more. Like we said, that's just one of those things that just opens things up for him. And I mean, but that doesn't necessarily keep him in the starting lineup because anybody can have a good 2-man game with Domas, especially a guy like Duarte who's had experience with him. So it's just like I said, 5, 10, 15 games, something like that. He's going to have to show massive strides. And I think based on Brown's comments, he knows there's going to be a bit of an adjustment that needs to take place. But like you said, this season's going to be tough. The division is tougher. The conference is tougher. Teams are not going to, there's no way it's going to be as weird and as down of a season or an up and down season for the league. Because last season was super weird. The fact that a 48-win team finished third in the conference, it's pretty peculiar and odd. So stakes are high, and like you said, deeper roster means a shorter leash for Herter. And yeah, I don't know how things are going to go, but I can't help but feel a little pessimistic about it, just because if there's an adjustment period, I think it might take longer than the leash would allow, and then from there, that just creates more issues. I don't know. I don't know if he'll get traded. I mean, that I'm thinking real far down the line now. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that conversation starts coming up in late December, January for venturing on the trade deadline. If, Duarte is starting and most importantly, staying healthy. And if Colby Jones keeps playing the way he's shown that he can play, both in the summer league and in the preseason. But Kevin Huerter, I think he's on the rocks, All of a sudden, Atlanta can go, see, we knew it.
Yeah, exactly. We won the trade.
I mean, technically speaking, that was the point that Atlanta wanted to do by getting DeJounte Murray, was to improve their defense. And there's no question that Kevin Huerter's defense was never going to be the biggest draw to him. Of course, there is always a potential that he can kind of, again, find that baseline of defense and be kind of a low-tier two-way player, but still a two-way player nonetheless. But, I mean, I would have expected pretty palpable improvement by this point. And he's just struggling. And it just seems like I said, he's just completely out of rhythm at this point. So he's going to need to figure that out, because this team's trying to go from good to great, as they always say. And they can't sit here and wait around for any guy. regardless of how much he's being paid, how much he's a fan favorite, and he is. People love him. People wear the red wigs and whatnot, but this is go time. This is serious, trying to vie for championship contention. And Huerter, quite frankly, right now doesn't look like he can help immensely, or at least help as much as some of the other guys on the team. So he's got to figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're hoping he could show it in the preseason, and just only brought up more questions. So I don't know. We'll see how long Brown's leash is for him.
And to be fair to him, I mean, his intent and his response to the challenge is going to be good. I don't think he's going to give up or say, screw this situation, screw this team. I think the bond of the locker room is too strong. He was such an immense help for the regular season last year. So I don't know. He's not going to roll over on this one. It'll be really interesting to see how he bounces back. But I think, beyond just getting challenged on this and beyond all these issues being so glaring and arguably being one of the biggest topics and takeaways from the preseason, maybe losing the starting job for a segment of the season is going to be good for him. Maybe that's a real wake-up call. Maybe you don't really feel it until it's actually slapped you in the face. So we'll see. I don't anticipate it just being all downhill from here for Kevin Huerter, but like I said, he's got to figure something out, because we post things about, well, should Duarte start over Huerter, and I feel like we get pretty good engagement on that, of people just being like, no, Huerter gets blown by too much, just echoing the things that we're all seeing, and it's just like, it's hard to deny. It's very hard to deny.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, Kevin Huerter. Did you expect to be talking about this at this point? Because I kind of didn't.
No, I mean, I would like Kevin Huerter. Like, we knew his issue was conditioning. We always knew his defense wasn't like the greatest, but I mean, I don't know if Huerter was hitting his shots at a high clip, it would, or just like the clip he kind of did all year until towards the end. I don't think we'd be having this discussion. I think we'd be talking about his defense a little and how it needs to improve. But I mean, when he's bad on both sides of the ball, it just brings up like a bigger issue. And it's, yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to get it taken care of with the conditioning and whatnot. And he knew that was going to be a big thing to work on during the offseason. So to see it not translating so far, I don't know. I mean, the conditioning is kind of whatever. It's still early on. It doesn't really matter too much right now. But I mean, dang, he's still not hitting shots, even with rest. So it's just kind of weird.
Yeah. And it's like, in terms of that whole finding a rhythm and hitting the shots that are typically easy, but they're harder because you're working more on the defensive end. I mean, that's so visible, because it feels like I think it was the second Warriors game, maybe he like hit the three to start the game, played a little bit of defense, and then it just all kind of washed away at that point. It's like the sustainability of that play is just so far from being where it needs to be. So I don't know. It can go either way. He can figure it out. He may not. It's definitely something intriguing to keep an eye on, because there are other guys there, as we kind of started saying. And kind of going off of that, another big takeaway from this preseason is the fact that Colby Jones looks like a mid to late first round pick and not an early second round pick at all. Really feels like they got him at 24 when they could have gotten him. And I mean, he's playing excellently. And as Mike Brown said about him on Thursday, he's making my job harder as a head coach, which he loves. And that's what you want to see. And I think the immediate thing about Colby Jones, regardless if he's doing this or that on either end, is he just seems to have a natural instinct to go through with what Mike Brown wants and play the right way and play hard on defense, try to bring ball pressure, fight through screens, make hard cuts. That's what another thing Mike Brown just loves about him, is he makes hard, timely cuts. And the way he can help the pace of the half court offense is immense. And the thing that's really crazy is I think out of everybody that had more than 12 3-point attempts, in the preseason, he had the second best 3-point percentage behind Trey Lyles. And Trey Lyles only had 12 attempts, while I think Colby Jones had like 22. So he was arguably the best 3-point shooter on the team this preseason, which 3-point shooting was kind of his biggest concern coming out of college because he only had one good season at Xavier of outside shooting. And I think it was only like 37%, which is respectable and good, but it's not like great. And do I expect him to shoot 40% from three? Not necessarily, but he can definitely shoot, 37, 38% because a lot of the shots he's going to get are wide open. And, he knows how to space things out and navigate around the perimeter and get open in the corner. And he just has like a sixth sense for NBA basketball. It's like what we said after, I think, 2 or 3 preseason games. It's just, he looks like a natural NBA role player and he can totally build off of that. And he probably won't be in the rotation to start, that 8 or 9, 10-man rotation. But dang, he is definitely making Mike Brown's job harder. And he just has a good demeanor about him. He's not overconfident, but he's confident and poised at the same time. And it's just everything you want to see. And as we said earlier about the Kings not trading for John Collins, despite all the rumors throughout the years, in McNair, people have to trust. I mean, he's just another great draft pick, it appears. I mean, it's early. The season hasn't started technically, but man, it's hard to come up with something about Colby Jones, especially with the way he shot the 3 ball this preseason. It's hard to come up with something to critique him on. He was arguably one of the most pleasing players to watch, regardless if he was playing with the third unit, with a bunch of G League and, into the bench guys, or if he was playing with starters and getting early minutes. He looked comfortable. He looked like one of the better players on the floor. And that's maybe not crazy. I guess that was always a possibility, but I mean, to see things working out that way, that really kind of alleviates, again, some of the worries for Huerter's struggles and whatnot. So Colby Jones, I think, is going to make a big impact this season, regardless if it's Huerter kind of falling out of favor or Duarte getting hurt or something like that. Colby Jones is going to be a very viable weapon and depth piece. And he's more than a depth piece, honestly. I mean, it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pleasantly surprised with how well Colby Jones played during the preseason. I mean, as a second round pick, I mean, if you listen to this podcast or me, like, I'm always kind of hard on second round picks. I'm like, yeah, they'll probably never play. It's just like a second round pick. And I know he probably could have gone a little higher, but never, nonetheless, he was a second round pick. And so I'm like, there's like, especially on a Kings team that's trying to win, it's like, man, I didn't think he would ever have a shot of cracking the rotation. But I think Colby Jones is going to get way more minutes than I ever thought he would this year. I thought he was going to get like those Keon Ellis minutes last year where Keon would come in like at the end of a blowout and just, hit a shot or two. But,
yeah, or at best like Terrence Davis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if he does a Terrence Davis role, it's more than I thought, really. I mean, Terrence Davis played some meaningful minutes at points. I mean, I would be even happy if he just did the Terrence Davis role and did it well and was a better defender. I mean, good for Colby. He's looked really good and great pickup by McNair, second rounder. A guy who actually looks like he has a place in this league, not like our other second round pick, Neemias Queta, or did we have a second rounder last year? I don't even know.
Jalen Slauson this year?
Jalen Slauson. Yeah, I don't know about him.
No second round pick the year before. But technically speaking, you can maybe say, because they traded for Sasha Vezenkov's draft rights by trading the 45th pick. He's kind of a second round pick, maybe. If you want to.
That's true. Sasha, yeah. Well, we'll have to see with Sasha, too.
Yeah.
Because Mike Brown said he doesn't know if he's going to crack the rotation at the beginning because of that defense. And I don't know. At this point, does Colby Jones have a better shot of cracking the rotation before Sasha does? Or do you think that's kind of a stretch?
I think he does. I mean, I think Vezenkov maybe is in like that 10-man rotation just based on position speaking, because
that's true.
Like, who's going to be the backup for? Or, I mean, well, no, because maybe not even the top 10, because, you still have Lyles and McGee and Len.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Vezenkov, I really root for Vezenkov because he just seems like such a down-to-earth guy, and he seems very aware of what's going on and the challenges that are, in front of him. But it's like defensively, it's just like, you see a little bit of improvement, but I think even in that Jazz game, there were a few moments where he got stuck one-on-one against, I think he got stuck one-on-one against THT a few times. And of course it's like, well, that's not the same position. That's a bigger player and a smaller player. But it's like the mismatch was just so bad. And it's just like his feet are not quick enough to guard those guys. And there were so many moments too throughout the preseason where, he'd be playing from the weak side and, be squeezing up into the middle of the floor the right way. But then as soon as the ball gets swung back to the weak side to a perimeter player and he's got to close out on him, as soon as he's closing out, he's got to push it so hard to get there to, contest a potential open three that, well, all of a sudden he just becomes a set of saloon doors and people can swing right through him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. And I don't think he's ever going to improve his foot quickness or whatnot, but he can gain a comfort with guarding in the NBA and trying to reduce the ability for other teams to exploit that. I think the more experience he gets in the league, he's smart enough. And I think the coaching staff with Fernandez and Mike Brown especially, they can help coach him up to limit those weaknesses. But I mean, it is a work in progress, and nothing's assured at this point for him. And he's really going to have to show that he can't be a liability. And I mean, I'm not too concerned about the fact that I think he shot under 30% from three this preseason, but I'm not too worried about the threes. I think one of the things that is interesting about him was, I think in that Jazz game, there were a few times where he got like dribble handoffs and he'd put the ball on the floor, basically hesitating on the shot, and then, dribble and pass, which Malik Monk said post game was like, we don't want him to do that. I mean, he's such a good shooter. He needs to shoot that ball. So I think the comfort with the 3-point shooting will come along. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, he might have the best, quickest stroke on the team, arguably.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's got a lot to do before he can be a rotational member. And if he is a rotational member, again, that can really open up a lot of things for the team. Lyles playing the 5, getting more shooting out there with both Lyles and Vezenkov. So it'd be really nice to see him get into that point. But I mean, I feel like he's a few months away from that. And yeah, I mean, the shooting's going to be there. He seems to have a very good mindfulness of the little things. He's really good on the glass. He and Colby Jones and a couple other guys are always down on the glass trying to get a rebound and getting a body on a guy, which is what you want. But doing the little things and trying to do the right thing is not always going to get you on the floor, especially with, as we've said, a very, very deep roster. So I don't know. It's work in progress for Vezenkov, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be. I think he can figure things out and limit his weaknesses defensively again midway through the season. I wouldn't be surprised also if he's kind of just a periphery player his first season and not seeing the floor that much, because there are other guys and, they have such versatility in terms of like Murray and Barnes, and they got Lyles, and they have two solid backup true centers that, it's going to be hard as it is for Vezenkov to kind of like creep into that rotation. And with the shooting and the lore of being a EuroLeague MVP, we all want him to be that. We all want him to, just from a pure basketball fan standpoint, everybody wants to see him play. It's just,
yeah,
it's good for the game. It's fun to watch. He's got such a beautiful shot, but I mean, realistically speaking, he's a pretty long way off from doing that, I think. So
yeah. I mean, Sasha's a smart guy. I think he can figure it out, but I think he's learning that NBA is a lot different than the Greek League or Euro League.
Yeah. And I think, and again, one of the things I like about him most is the fact that he seems super aware of that, and he's not expecting anything, and he must not be expecting anything. I would imagine all of this was talked about in his contract negotiations. And yeah, I mean, he got paid a pretty good amount, but it's not enough to say that he was assured a rotational spot. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of progresses throughout the year. I can only imagine that things will go up, but at what rate, it remains to be seen. So
something to keep your eye on for sure.
Definitely. I mean, it's just like one of those things where I felt so silly all offseason be like, well, we don't know how his defense is going to be. I just kept saying that. And it was just like, well, yeah, there's a reason for that. I know there's a lot of people that are saying that and still saying that, obviously. But Sasha V.
Hoping for the best. I would love Sasha to be that sniper who can see the floor and play decent defense to keep him on the floor, but not sure if we're going to start off the season that way.
Yeah.
I wonder when our first Sasha sighting will be. Think it'll be in game 1? Think he plays on Wednesday, tomorrow?
If it's not a late game blowout, like where there's separation and they're just taking primary players out, I don't imagine him playing. Because, I mean, I know Mike Brown last season, I think he played like 10, 11 guys, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was still trying to figure out his rotations. And if it was last season, I would say, yes, we'd definitely see him. I mean, they started KZ Okpala last season. So
don't remind me.
So I wouldn't have been like surprised to see him, but it's like things this year, there's such carryover. There's such a, stronger continuity here that it's hard to kind of throw him in that core there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play at all on Wednesday. But, maybe the Kings blow out the Jazz, or maybe the Jazz blow out the Kings. I don't know. Maybe you see extended Sasha minutes. But I think any opportunity to get Vezenkov out there, even if it's not necessarily the most meaningful minutes, he'll really have a chance to get kind of game time improvement there. But I don't know. It's not super surprising from Vezenkov. I think we kind of said it at the start of preseason that, he may not get that rotational spot right away, but a few months in, he very well could. I don't know if I still agree with that. I still feel like it's gonna take some considerable time, but I'm not like too worried because it's not that surprising. It's not like they were leaning on him to be the guy. So it'll be probably slow but steady progression from Vezenkov, I would imagine, but we'll have to see.
Yes, we will.
But talking about the depth of the team, we mentioned the center situation, and we saw this preseason that JaVale McGee is a good pickup, providing nice mobility and rim protection. And he's veteran that has played in the league for a long time. So when he has the ball in his hands, which he'll have a lot in his opportunities in this offense, he makes pretty good decision-making. And then obviously one of the big topics among people who watch the team and cover the team is the fact that he's forming a nice partnership with Malik Monk. And there's a lot of good things to say about JaVale McGee. But at the same time, it wasn't all perfect. And one of the constants for him throughout the preseason was the fact that he would always have like 2 to 4 turnovers a game. And like Mike Brown said, you can't, in 12 minutes a game, you can't be turning the ball over 2-3 times, 3 or 4 times, So that's a little bit of a concern. And to put it into kind of these terms, per 36 minutes this preseason, he averaged 6.4 turnovers. Now, obviously, he's never going to play 36 minutes, but that gives an insight as to how much he's turning the ball over, in his minutes. It's a little inflated there, far too much than what he should be doing. And also, there's just like JaVale McGee moments where I think there were at least 2 or 3 times this preseason where he fouled a 3-point shooter. And as good of a shot blocker as he is, he doesn't always go vertical the way you'd like him to go. So sometimes he'll end up with fouls. And I think the fouls and the turnovers, do kind of put him in a position where he could lose his job. And I think the main reason for that is Alex Len is just so solid and doesn't turn the ball over, has less fouls, in his minutes. And, he's obviously comfortable in the offense. He's been in this offense all last season. And, Len is just solid, like I said. And he gets just about as many block shots as McGee. I think in less minutes, he had about as many block shots as McGee did this preseason. So he's equally as good as a rim protector. We talked about it a lot last season, that his mobility and ability to move seemed a lot better. And one of the things I kept noticing in his minutes, especially in that last preseason game where he got to be the backup center because Domantas Sabonis didn't play and McGee started, is that Len is so sharp in his movements, and his half-court pace for such a big guy is good. He sets the screen. He runs hard to set the screen. He runs hard to roll to the rim. And there's just something about him that's just, he's not, I guess I would put it this way, as opposed to McGee, maybe McGee has a better chance of helping you, but Len has a better chance of not hurting you. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is the fact that as good as McGee is as a pickup, and as much as Mike Brown trusts in him, there's Alex Len there. And I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Len takes that job at some point. I mean, McGee did lose his rotational job last season with the Mavericks. Of course, it's a different situation. But, I mean, Alex Len is solid. And Mike Brown had nothing but good things to say about him on Thursday. He does the right things. He's tough. Takes an elbow to the face and gets called for a foul. Tough guy. Good shot blocker again. Brings the vertical. He had a whole season of preaching from Mike Brown about going vertical a little bit better. I think he's a little more in tune with that. I don't know. I mean, McGee's good, but would you be surprised if Alex Len gets a nod at the backup 5 at some point this season? And of course, that's only going to happen if McGee does not bring the turnovers down, or if he continues kind of making silly fouls here and there, which is not as big of an issue as the turnovers. The turnovers is definitely the big issue because he does turn the ball over a fair amount.
I mean, has Brown said that McGee's going to be the primary guy off the bench after Sabonis?
McGee's had the minutes in preseason. He's gotten tread over Len in that regard. And in Thursday's post-game comments, he was talking about McGee getting, he's going to get 12 minutes a game. I mean, he's talking about it like he's going to get it. And just from watching the preseason and how the rotations have worked, the indication is that McGee will get those. And if you remember correctly, too, earlier in preseason, Deuce Mason asked about all the options at center and whether it's going to be more matchup based or whatnot. And Mike Brown kind of alluded to the fact that it's like, no, we're going to have a guy and we're going to kind of stick with that. Like, that'll be the thing. So to me, it seems like McGee's going to get first go at being the backup center. And I mean, he could go the whole season as the backup center, no problem. I could see that happening. But, those turnovers do become an issue. Do you see Len taking those minutes at some point? Do you agree that Len is kind of maybe better in the sense that he doesn't hurt the team as much?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I'm not going to answer your question directly. I can see Alex. I can see Alex Len taking the job at points in the season. Maybe not so much like last year, where like Len would come in for a game, or Keita would come in for Metu, where Metu kind of just had the backup center role most of the season. I think it's going to be more like scattered, because I think Alex Len, he's a good player. He showed last year that at the end of last year that he's, can be a productive NBA player. I mean, I could see them just trading off, like they go on their spurts, kind of like in longer spurts that like than Keita and Lynn were getting for Metu last season. Because Alex Len, I think he's a good player. I think he's on the level of where JaVale McGee is now in his career. I know JaVale, I guess it's the higher ceiling, right? Like JaVale at his best might be a little better than Alex Len at his best, but are you going to get that level from JaVale McGee night in, night out? I mean, the dude rules Shaq in a fool for a reason, right? So, I mean, Alex Len, don't underrate Alex Len. I don't think anyone is really, because he ended the season so well last year, and even in the playoffs. I mean, I think in the first game of the postseason, he was the defensive player of the game chain guy. So, I mean, Alex Len he can step in and, fill a hole, and, you won't bat an eye.
And maybe you want that to kind of happen where they're trading off significant segments of the season being the backup center, because as you said, McGee's 36, or he's going to be 36 or in January, I think. And then Len didn't play a full season last year, and we saw him play so well because he was fresh, Yeah. So maybe you kind of want that. Maybe that's just a benefit, and it will be a little more 50-50 or 60-40. But yeah, like you said, don't sleep on Len. And it's just, it's such a far cry from last season where it was just constant searching for that backup five. As soon as the Holmes thing fell through, which was very quick,
Yeah.
they had to go with Metu for a long time. And I think Mike Brown trusted Metu to maybe get better and play within himself and play the way that they want to play and utilize his strengths as a quicker five. But that just never really materialized. And it really hurt his cause, Metu's that is, that he didn't shoot threes. Maybe you don't want him shooting threes. But again, as we've said, he did close the season prior out pretty well from three. And he always kind of had that. It was never like promising, but it was a possibility that he could add some stretch element. So, this season it's a lot more certain. And another thing about Len too is he took a couple of threes this preseason. He looked a little more ready to take that shot when it was there. And I think he shot 50%. I think he probably only put up about 4 attempts maybe. But I mean, he hit half of them. They didn't always look good. I think he maybe airballed one of them. So it's not like the best shot, but you saw McGee in the Jazz game. There were a couple times where Walker Kessler just kind of sagged off McGee and said, like, we'll take a shot. And McGee took 2 or 3 mid-range shots and they just clunked off the rim. And you don't want him taking that shot. So
yeah,
it's kind of another element to Len that's kind of interesting. We talked about it before last season because he shot, I think, like 40% in EuroBasket. So it was like, can he bring a shooting element? And I think he must know that can be one of the, aside from not turning the ball over as much and just kind of being solid, that it can be another thing that separates him from McGee. But there's not a lot of separation between the two, I would say. And that's a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. Don't sleep on Alex Len.
Don't sleep on him.
He might be comfortable. He just feels like a Tempur-Pedic mattress. No, I'm going to sleep on Alex Len, Harrison Barnes is like, yeah, no, I sleep on Alex Len. That's
Alex.
Yeah.
It's a little insanity.
Sensational.
Sensational.
Yeah. But, I guess just worthy of note, through 4 preseason games, Malik Monk did not look very good offensively. I think he shot with some poor percentages, and a lot of the constructive criticism of perimeter defense and pick and roll defense. A lot of it gets thrown onto Huerter, but Mike Brown has done a good job of not just pinning it all on Huerter and saying that there's multiple guys that need to play better defense in the regard of pick and roll defense, dribble handoff defense, and just not getting blown by. And Malik Monk could have equally been in that category too. I mean, it seemed like every game there was a backdoor cut that he would allow. I think in that second Warriors game, there was a moment where he just totally lost sight of Gary Payton II, who got an offensive rebound, or maybe he made a cut after an offensive rebound, just had an easy layup. And there were a couple other backdoor cuts throughout the preseason where it just seemed like Monk wasn't there. But in the last game, he really whipped back into form. And I think did he lead the team in scoring? He had like 28 points.
Yeah, I think he did.
A very good game from him. I mean, I think he was a little absent in the second and third quarters, but I mean, that's kind of the essence of Malik Monk. But the first and fourth quarters were just terrific. And I guess it was never a big worry that Malik Monk was going to fall off or have a drop back from last season. But those first 4 games were a bit of a concern, especially maybe defensively. And even defensively, he looked far more in tune with what was going on, a little tougher in terms of getting around picks and being a lot more aware of his man. And I don't think he allowed a backdoor cut in that game, which might have been the first preseason game where he didn't. So it's worth noting that Malik Monk, even if people weren't super worried, and I know I wasn't super worried about what he'll be able to do, especially in a contract year, but it was really reassuring to see him play the way that he should be playing there in that last game. But, he did kind of build up a little bit of concern that probably got overshadowed by the Kevin Huerter talk, at least with this podcast. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just worthy of note, I think, that Malik Monk, I mean, he said it himself. He's been taking it a little too easy in preseason. So, maybe that's a sign too. We've talked a lot about the fact that he needs to be more consistent. So maybe he's gaining a little bit better consciousness of the fact that he does need to kind of bring a better grit and edge to his game where he is more consistent and not hurting the team. So, I mean, he seems to recognize the fact that he is one of the most important and best players on this team. And when he's playing well, the team usually plays well. And yeah, I don't know. It seems so benign and like not a big deal because it's Malik Monk and people weren't really worried about him. But I think that was a big promising thing to see in that last preseason game was Malik Monk kind of get back in his lane, the lane we're used to seeing him in. So
yeah, Monk's not a guy I'm ever really going to worry about, but at the same time, it's like because you think he's just a streaky guy, but I guess that's something you do have to worry about, right? Is his streakiness. And I mean, if he really wants to take that next step and be that real sixth man of the year guy to win it, I mean, that streakiness is going to have to just be cut out or not be so long of streaks where he's just ice cold, you know? So I'm not concerned for Monk, but I guess I am still concerned over his streakiness because, I mean, when he's bad, he is, you know, pretty bad. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, he's the thing that I love about Monk, and I think Mike Brown said it, is that when he gets in those pick and roll situations where he's so dangerous going downhill, the main thing he wants to do is throw the lob. The second thing he wants to do is score. And then the third thing he wants to do is kick it out or spray it for a three. And, you know, if he can just kind of find a nice balance to when he's not shooting well, to continue to just lean into that, you know, where he can help. I mean, I guess part of the consistency could just be, you know, knowing where your weaknesses are at any given point. You know, if the shot's not falling, try to find other ways to impact the game. It could be just a little bit more comfort within the offense in finding what works and what's not working and being aware of that. And also, I think one of the things I want to see from Monk this season is there were a couple points last year in his cold slumps where Mike Brown talked about him kind of being a little banged up. He's a small guy. Hopefully he can, you know, avoid nicks and bruises or whatever and not let that affect his consistency because he's such a great scorer and facilitator. And he's always, I mean, all of last season, he was way above expectation on defense. Not a great defender, but way above expectation. I think we had a hot take at this time last year, right before the season started, where we were like, yeah, everybody needs to take it easy on Monk because his defense, I mean, like he's got to show a lot on defense. And he did. So, you know, this season, especially with it being a contract year, I think Monk's got a real good chance to make a run at that sixth man of the year. And yeah, maybe that was never in question, but it's good to see. It was good to see in that last game.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, one more kind of takeaway, I guess, and it's not as lucrative of a topic because it's a guy that's arguably the 12th, 13th, or 14th guy. But Kessler Edwards led the team in rebounds on Thursday night. And one of the things that I took note of in the summer league was the fact that he was playing the four a lot more, guarding more conventional fours and being far more involved on the glass. And James Ham asked him about the fact that he was bulked up a little bit more this past off season and asked if that was, you know, any reason for that was because he wanted to be more of a 3-4 rather than just a 3 and a 2 basically, because he did start a few games for Kevin Huerter late in the year and started at the 2. And it just seems like Kessler Edwards, even if he's not really pushing the envelope on cracking the rotation or anything like that, his play time is going to increase relative to expectations because he is far more versatile. So, I mean, not much to say off of that, I guess, but I mean, Kessler Edwards is just so solid. And it seemed like every time he was out there in the preseason, and he didn't have the most voluminous opportunities this preseason, but it seemed like whenever he was out there, he was pretty good. And in that last game, he went 2 for 2 from 3. And I think he shot like 34 or 35% last season in his time with the Kings. And it's just like Kessler Edwards is a great reminder of just how deep this team is when that guy's waiting in the wings, because he was such a big help to this team and providing defense where nobody else was really providing that level of defense outside of the typical guys like Davion Mitchell and even De'Aaron Fox. So I think it's worthy to give Kessler Edwards some love. I think we were among I think there were other people out there that were saying that was a great trade and whatnot and that believed in Kessler Edwards, but I think we bestowed upon him the KE nickname. I don't know if that's sticking anywhere, but I still write in my notes when he does something. It's KE. It's not Kess or anything like that. It's KE. So love to Kessler Edwards, man. I mean, solid player and seems really in a good mental state of knowing his place on the team, but also knowing that he's got to stay ready at all times. And he said that he's done that his whole career and he's had to do that his whole career. And he's just going to kind of keep that mindset. And what more could you love? So
Yeah. K's been great so far since coming at the deadline. Great pickup by McNair. Just one of those guys going to play spot minutes, usually in defensive situations. But, a guy he might maybe not force Brown, but definitely his defense, I guess, might force Brown to put him on the floor.
Yeah.
That's what you love to see.
And we're talking about Sasha Vezenkov, not necessarily proving that he can do stuff. And, not saying, and we were saying that's not such a big deal because, they have Murray, Barnes, Lyles. And you throw Kessler Edwards in there too. I mean, if he can play the 4, all of a sudden you kind of have 2 guys there in Vezenkov and Kessler Edwards. You got an offensive guy and you got a more defensive guy. And Kessler Edwards can do himself a lot of favors if he is shooting closer to 35, maybe 36% from 3. So, I don't know if I expect Kessler Edwards to be like a surprise contributor this season. But like you said, spot minutes, I expect him to be solid and be helpful whenever his number is called. So just a testament to the makeup of the team. And again, Monty McNair, I don't know if we give him enough love here, but it's another one of those things where it's just like you traded the draft rights to David Michino.
Dude, I was just going to say, we don't know if we won the trade yet because David Michino.
At 37 years old or whatever old he is.
Wait, is he really?
Yeah, he's like in his mid to late 30s.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He was drafted 10 years ago. So interesting. But yeah, Kessler Edwards, solid, deserves a nod. I guess kind of, the season starts this week. Do you have a idea of where the Kings will finish, what their win total will be? Do you have any predictions on that? Any hunches?
Man, honestly, I think the Kings are going to end up about the same spot they did last year. Maybe, I don't know, 50? I would love to see them win 50. I think they have a legit shot at getting 50, considering they won 48 last year. But I just don't know. It's just, I think they're going to be a better team for sure, but who knows how the injury bug is going to affect them this year. And, and who knows how it's going to affect other teams this year too. Because again, we've talked about it a lot. A big reason the Kings got that 3rd seed with, only 48 wins, which isn't usually the 3rd seed in the West, is because a lot of teams were injured and the Kings really didn't have any major injuries last year. So I don't know. It just really depends on, I think that really, how well are these other teams going to stay healthy? Because I hate to say it, but every team in that division you could argue is better than the Kings,
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue the Kings are the best team in that division, maybe, but I don't know. I think they just have a lot to prove still without this injury excuse, It's like, yeah, they were 3rd in the seed because of the injury bug. Yeah, sure. I agree with it, but now they're going to really have to prove that they're here and they're they can fight with teams at full strength.
Yeah, so you're going with 50 wins, or you going a little lower than that?
I'm going to go 49, just 49. Right in the middle between last year and 50.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to win 47 and finish 6th in the conference. Not a knock on them or anything like that. And I think they should be more prepared for the playoffs, but it's just there's no way the season's going to be as weird as last season. And like you said, that division's tough. And I have questions. I know the Suns are loaded and they got some good tools around them, not including Chimezie Metu. And then the Clippers, they have a good, strong kind of central core. But I feel like I could see the Kings maybe edging them out. It'd be really interesting to see what happens with the Suns. I could eat my words on that. The Suns could easily go ahead and win more than 50 games easily. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Suns are kind of a 46, 48 win team. And the Clippers too.
Go
Go ahead.
I mean, just hanging on the Suns and the Clippers for a minute, and even the Lakers. Um, I mean, there's a lot of star players on those teams that have missed many games in many of the last few seasons, right? Or in the last few seasons. I mean, Kevin Durant is constantly out, right?
Yeah.
Kawhi and Paul George constantly out. Anthony Davis constantly out. So I mean, they lost star players in this division, but also, I mean, they have that new rule where it's like I think teams get penalized for sitting out two of their star players or something. I forget the rule off the top of my head. But I mean, I'm not just gonna expect Kawhi Leonard to play all 82 games this year now, or Anthony Davis not to get injured, or Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant's always sitting out. I feel like so.
Yeah.
I mean, if the injury bug is going to hit, I mean, it's probably going to be those guys, right? The Warriors, they relatively stay healthy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
other than Steph and Clay, I guess Clay kind of had a rough those 2 seasons, and Steph broke his hand in that 1 year. But I mean, they're usually on the floor, and same with Chris Paul. I don't know, Chris Paul last year. I wasn't really paying attention to Chris Paul.
I feel like he got a lot of rest. They gave him a lot of rest.
Yeah. But he's also
like,
not the same guy anymore.
True, but in a kind of 6-man role and whatnot.
I mean he'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he did make Kevin Huerter look even slower in that second Warriors game. But I totally agree. I mean, I feel like to me the Clippers. I mean, I think when you look at win over unders, the Kings of the Pacific Division have the lowest at like 44.5. I would say the Clippers have the most to prove, because even when you go beyond the fact that they have Leonard and George, just like there's other questions about their roster. I don't like their bench very much. They still have Bones Highland as basically their backup point guard, I believe, and I'm just not super convinced that the Clippers are not the worst. And it's by being the worst team in the Pacific Division, you're probably still a really good team, but I mean, I probably put them at the bottom there. And then that's a good point about the Lakers, but I don't know. I mean, the Lakers seem to have just found new life after their trade deadline last season. And even if LeBron James sits out a fair amount, and even if Anthony Davis misses a little bit of time, I mean, Jackson Hayes is solid. They picked up Christian Wood. Maybe he has a little bit of a resurgence. They have Gabe Vincent and what else do they add? Well, they have Rui Hachimura too. I mean, like I feel like the Lakers, they're a pretty deep team too. They obviously have Austin Reeves, who is, ascending among the league. Yeah, I don't know. I still like the Lakers a lot. I think the Warriors are really going to be solid. They're going to be completely different than last year, and far more balanced on between home and road. I don't know. I would put the Kings right in the middle. I don't know if it'll be the Suns or the Lakers right behind them, in my opinion, or what. But yeah, I don't know that division. It's so tough to kind of guess where things are going to go. But
I mean, I could see the Kings being the best in the division. I could see them being the worst. Like I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're like going to be the worst team in the division. I think every team in the division made the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
The Clippers? Did the Clippers?
They were a play-in team, weren't they?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, did they play the Suns in the first round? I think they made it. So I mean, I think they'll make the playoffs still, but yeah, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, especially with the Suns having so much to prove. I'm still interested in seeing the Warriors, even the Lakers, and I don't know, the Clippers too. Just always so many question marks with these teams, especially with guys that are injury prone a lot. And, even aging superstars and LeBron and Steph and even Clay and Draymond aren't the youngest guys ever. And the Kings are a young team ascending, and, they have a lot of prove on their shoulders, and guys who, the Kings are probably a team that would like to win that first seed in the West, compared to maybe the Lakers, who are probably just happy with the playoff spot, get their guys some rest. Same with these other teams who have these star players, a little more focused on the playoffs, where the Kings I think they're going to take the regular season more serious than probably these other 4 teams who have been in the playoffs, the last 4 years in a row, and have championship expectations. I mean, every team in this division has championship expectations, which is kind of crazy. So you could, I mean, the Clippers do with Kawhi and Paul George, Lakers obviously with LeBron. Suns were just in it 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, and the Warriors just won it 2 years ago. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's a stacked division. It's really stacked.
And the Lakers did make the Western Conference Finals too, just to throw out.
Yeah, they did. I didn't even say that.
It's I don't know. I mean, if you had to just guess how that division's going to finish, just best bet off the top of your head, how do you think it'll go?
Okay. I'm going to say Suns, Lakers, Kings, Warriors, Clippers. I think the Kings can be better than the Warriors.
Yeah. I for some reason, I got Golden State, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and then Clippers. First Los Angeles, the Lakers. I forget. I'm surprised enough the Inglewood Clippers.
Yeah, for real. Long Beach, Inglewood. I didn't do it very well, but
it's all right. I think people know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, and then kind of just zooming out on the conference. Obviously, the Nuggets are going to be really good. The Grizzlies, the Grizzlies. A lot of questions there.
A lot of questions. Steven Adams out for the year. John Morant's going to miss the first 25 games. I mean, they have a lot of experience playing without him, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, with the division being tougher, I mean, that's going to be – it's not going to be easy on them. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is really good. Tyus Jones was, I think, he might have finished above Monk in Sixth Man of the Year voting. But
yeah, Tyus was good. They have Marcus Smart now.
Oh, yeah, they do. That's a great point.
Yeah,
that's going to be a huge help to them. Yeah. I mean, I still think the Grizzlies will probably make the playoffs, but
yeah, I do too.
It's a little tougher with the tougher conference and their setbacks with Adams and suspension. But, I don't know. I mean, like, the Timberwolves, how's that going to go? I mean, they had the big falling out last season with the punch from Gobert. That's kind of bizarre. I don't know if Anthony Edwards. Everybody's talking about Anthony Edwards.
True.
That huge jump, and maybe he's going to be great, but I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, are the Thunder going to make a jump? Are the Jazz going to do anything? I mean, I don't know about the Jazz. I don't know if the Jazz want to do anything.
Yeah,
but I don't trust the Pelicans too much. What do the Pelicans add? I mean, they.
No one. I don't know. I think just is Zion going to play all year or not? I mean, I think that's kind of like the Pelicans dilemma, right?
Yeah, and even if he does, I mean, like, is he going to be the Zion everybody expected him to be when he was drafted number 1 overall? I don't freaking know.
I don't know either. I mean, when he plays, he's honestly really good, and I wouldn't be surprised, but he's just never on the floor.
Yeah, it's hard to see them cracking the top 6 and just not. I mean, I could see them being a playing team, obviously, but I don't really fear New Orleans very much. If I was any team in the West.
No.
Yeah, I mean, and then outside of that, I mean, it's just, you have like the Spurs. I don't expect the Spurs to do anything.
Wembanyama he just leads them to the first seed.
That would be crazy. I'd be surprised if Wembanyama plays more than 50 games, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a little, like, with all the hype that happens in this league about guys and teams and stuff like that, I mean, he's got a lot to prove in my mind.
A ton. A ton.
You got a ton to prove. The Mavericks, I just don't trust the Mavericks either. I mean, that's a team that could do something, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't trust them.
I mean, they got they were like
they got Rashawn Holmes, dude.
Yeah, Rashawn Holmes going to lose out to Derek Lively probably, and Dwight Powell. I mean, like, I just don't see. Like, I don't know what they were expecting with Rashawn Holmes. I mean, we're just going to get rid of JaVale McGee and Rashawn Holmes. I feel like that's a downgrade. I mean, they got Grant Williams. I guess that's
that's
defensive, versatility guy.
Yeah, I don't know. But the Mavs, I don't trust them.
The Mavs, I would kind of put in maybe one step above New Orleans, and I would say that New Orleans probably has a better tie as a group. I don't know. Remember when
the Mavs were remember we played the Mavs back-to-back games for like that third seed?
It was like right after Kyrie got traded there.
Yeah, and it's like for the third seed. and then they didn't even make the play-in.
They just fell the frick off completely.
That was weird. Those are some good games too.
Yeah, they were.
I'm just like, whoa. And then they just sucked. I remember just like, I'm like, what? Where is Dallas in the standings?
They just
not even a play-in team.
Keep sliding.
It's so weird. It's JaVale McGee. It's the JaVale McGee effect. Why are we just going to suck this year? And the Kings, they start their first year of an 18-year playoff drought. Imagine.
Yeah, the Kings go ahead into the All-Star break as the number 1 seed, and they just have the worst second half and fall out of the playoffs.
The worst last 25 games.
Thanks, JaVale.
You idiot.
Yeah. What about Houston? You scared of Houston at all?
Houston.
Fred VanVleet?
Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks.
And Reggie Bullock. I mean, they got Eamon Thompson. I thought that was a good draft pick, obviously. And Şengün is promising, maybe.
I like Şengün.
And they still have Jabari Smith Jr., who could turn it around.
JSJ, anyone call him that?
I don't know. Maybe
we'll start, and we're going to cover them. So every time
all the great nicknames start here at Cap City Crown.
Yeah, they're just the initials. That's it.
Houston has Victor Oladipo.
I guess.
It's crazy.
Who cares?
Yeah. They also got Tari Eason, who I think was a good draft pick last season.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a 6-man at Baylor and kind of projects to be that.
Baylor.
But we'll have to see. They got Boban.
Boban Marjanovic?
He's still. How much is he getting paid? I mean, like
probably nothing.
Not a ton, but they have Jock Landale. I didn't even notice that.
Jock, where was he from? The Suns?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just don't like that guy. It's just something about him. This is like those players. I'm like, I just don't like you.
He just, whenever I see him, he looks like Hunter Pence.
Oh yeah, he does.
Former Giants right fielder. Yeah, I don't know. Houston would be interesting.
Houston,
but they got
we have a problem.
Who knows what can happen? Maybe.
Okay, yeah. I forgot about that. There's my ice machine, by the way.
There it is, making its weekly appearance.
I use so much ice nowadays. I love cold water.
Ice cold water.
Ice cold water, not just cold, ice cold.
Yeah. Well, maybe time to ice this podcast. Ice
it up, baby. That's our season preview. Kings winning between 46 and 49 games. Finished somewhere between the 6th and 5th seed, in between it somewhere. The 5.5 seed.
The 5.5 seed. The Kings making history as the first ever 5.5 seed in the NBA playoffs.
And Kevin Huerter going to lose his starting job. Game 6. I'm just going to say it here. And I'm just going to, celebrate if it does for a reason I probably shouldn't be celebrating.
For egotistical reasons of being right.
Yeah. I told you. I told everyone. I'm just going to start making bold predictions after that.
That's like half of sports talk, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really is.
Woo! Suck it, baby. I was right. That guy sucks. It's just like, man, take it easy.
Oh my God, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He just signed a 3-year, $186 million extension. That's insane. How much is that a year? $62 million. It's crazy, the NBA contracts nowadays. I'm like, what? Like, I sort of got 10 years ago, like Kobe was like Kobe Bryant's the highest paid player. Okay, maybe not 10 years. Yeah, maybe 10 years ago at like 19 mil, which was like, whoa, he's making 19 mil. I remember like once you started getting like the 20s, like, wow, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I feel like it still kind of is for like baseball. Like, you're getting paid 20, but now it's like, I feel like if you're just like a starter in this league, you're gonna make 20. But like 62 million, that's insane. It's more than a quarterback.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's but he, if anybody deserves it, it's probably him.
Yeah, that's fair. He's really good. Or Jokic, honestly.
Jokic as well.
But I mean, Jokic he's probably making 60 himself, I think. So anyways, prediction, tomorrow night's game, Kings Jazz, who do you got?
Oh, I got the Kings.
Yeah, I got the Kings.
Come out and win.
Win.
I don't think it'll be like a blowout or anything. I think it'll be a close game. And I think I was listening to the Jazz broadcast for that Thursday game, and they were talking about like, yeah, this team still has a lot to prove. The Jazz, that is, at winning games late, and I think that the Kings have an edge in that. And I think you'll see late in the fourth quarter the Kings kind of make some separation. It'll probably be close for most of the game. First game of the season, work out some kinks, but yeah, I expect the Kings to go into Friday against Golden State 1-0, and really looking forward to that Friday game. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. Yeah, I got the Kings winning, and yeah, really looking forward to Friday's first nationally televised game of the year against the Warriors. It's going to be really fun. Fun way to start off the NBA season. So
definitely.
That's all I got today. Oh, sorry.
Then they have the Lakers on Sunday before
the Lurkers.
The Lurkers. So it's like, yeah, 2 of these 3 games are going to be really, really good and important, obviously.
Yeah, the Jazz and Lakers.
Division is. Yeah. Actually, the last 2 games against the Jazz, the last preseason game and the first game of the season, 2 biggest games.
Yeah. It just really shows how it's just really going to set the tone of how the Kings
are really feeling that rivalry between Utah and Sacramento is really building up to be something pretty great.
Salt Lake Sac.
All right.
All right, everyone. I hope you're as excited as us, and we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. But until then, have a good one.